Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What's going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz here, founder of Beard Brand, and we have another e-commerce conversation. As always, I've got a special guest with me here in Austin, Texas, Cody McLean of Support Ninjas. And today we are going to talk about customer service, building out your customer service. And this is part 8 of our series on how to build an e-commerce business. Cody, why don't you go ahead and expand upon my introduction. Tell us a little more about you and the businesses you've built.
Yeah, Eric. I started my first business when I was 15. It was a web hosting company. I've had almost, I'd say, 4 different types of web hosting companies since then. And after my third or my fourth, I was having to provide support to my customers, but I was outsourcing to India. And so I decided, let me take my Indian team of engineers and support reps and provide that to other web hosting companies. So then I established a company called Support Monk. I think maybe that was around 2019. And then I sold my hosting company, and then I sold that company, and then I was kind of on hiatus for a year. And then I saw a niche for providing support for startups. And then I've established Support Ninja back in 2015. And in 2015, I started the company, and now I have a little over 500 people. We work with companies like Hotel Tonight, Checker, Uber, RV Share, and many others that I can't think of at the moment. But we do their customer support and back office from our office in the Philippines, and then we have a small team based here in Austin, Texas.
I can't even imagine managing 500 team members, especially like as an international business.
And
is that wild?
It is. Every time I go back to the Philippines, it is a feeling I never get used to, where I have agents I've never met before, and then I see people are actually nervous because I'm the big boss. And it's just a feeling that I can never get used to. Apparently, in most outsourcing companies, the big boss never comes down and talks to a ground level agent. And we do that all the time across all spectrums of our level of operations. And they always almost think, am I in trouble? So it's a different mentality, but we're trying to bring that startup mentality of how to run a business, how to treat people to the Philippines, which is a country that's not normally used to that type of treatment.
Yeah, would you find that it's a little challenging to get them trained up and ramped up to kind of, I guess, like the American style of customer service? Or are they, how long would it take an average employee to learn, quote unquote, standard customer service practices?
For the Philippines, it's not really a problem because they actually used to be a U.S. colony. And so when the U.S. was colonizing the Philippines, they changed the schooling system to be based on the English language. And so they've adopted a lot of our culture and society. They like a lot of the same things. They all speak English very well. And then they all work in call centers, which further go on to train them in additional levels of customer service. So to all the agents we hire, they all have a university degree, and they've all almost had some level of experience at a large call center that's typically outsources to the Philippines as well. So to actually get an agent, they already have a base level of experience, and we basically will take that agent and then train them specifically for the client that needs that training, just for their company.
That's pretty cool. So I'm really looking forward to this podcast episode because at Beard Brand, we really value customer service. We actually don't call it customer service here. We call it customer experience because we believe that it entails not just, like email tickets, but also phone calls, our online forums, social media, and of course, like our YouTube channel and things like that, content, all that kind of is put into this big customer experience standpoint. And support tickets are just like a small portion of that. What, we're on part 8. So in theory, like at this point, businesses are probably still trying to get off the ground. They're still pretty small. Maybe it's the owner is doing absolutely everything. When is a good idea for an owner to hire that first customer service person, or to consider outsourcing it as well?
It all comes back to how much time do you have available. I think when you're first starting off a business, you're going to be in it almost all the time. And that's something to get you out of working that 9-to-5 job to go and start that business that you can be passionate about and working about all the time. But if you do that forever, you're going to burn yourself out. And eventually you have to put a value on your time. I know Ramit Sethi, he has a very good blog post that's specifically tailored for freelancers and consultants to help you determine what is your hourly rate. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs who are doing that base level customer service and those phone calls all the time that interrupt their ability to perform that deep work, or Cal Newport's book, Deep Work. And you want to have a divide between how much you're managing your business, between making your business, because it's the making that allowed you to get into that position in the first spot. So if you're doing all the customer service and it's taking up more and more time, it is a question of when are you going to stop doing that and hire somebody else. My biggest advice on that is know your business inside and out. I've seen entrepreneurs who decide that, okay, I made the business, let me go and hire people to handle the customer service with me. And there's always going to be a level of growth when you hire a person, you tell them what they need to know, but then when that business grows, they're always going to have some level of knowledge that they're growing with that you aren't aware of. But if you hire somebody outright and you don't know how to even support your own customers, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to have divides, you're going to have problems potentially with employees. He could blackmail you because he knows information about your business that you don't. And so to establish the business first by doing that customer support, you're not only connecting with your customers, but you're also able to see what areas in your business are problematic that you can fix, because that's one of the biggest issues when you have an employee is they don't follow what's called the Kaizen mindset of actually trying to improve what they're doing at the same time. Most companies have employees who will do what they're told, but they don't actively think about how to improve the process. And an example is that if you get a customer asking you about a refund, and maybe you have information on the website, as an entrepreneur, you might think, how can I eliminate this question again? Can I put this in the order confirmation email? Can I put this more clear on the website, what my policy is? And that can reduce your chances of getting an inquiry like that in the future. Whereas an employee is just going to handle as many questions on refunds as possible, and they don't care. You're paying them for their time. You're not paying them to work for you and to grow and scale the mentality of the business as a whole.
So that's something that's really important to look out for as you look for those team members, and maybe part of your screening process in those early days, at least for us at Beard Brand, our first hire was technically she was an executive assistant, but it was essentially all the things I didn't want to do, she would do. And we worked very close, very hands-on together, a lot of communication. And we're fortunate that she had that passion to want to learn, to grow, to solve problems, to take on new responsibilities, rather than maybe someone who's been doing customer service for 5 or 6 years, and they view that as kind of their career. So I think really sculpting what your job description is going to be for that first hire, but also are you going to be able to get that type of experience from an outsourced customer service firm?
At first, no. For the most part, I would not hire an outsourced company at the beginning because you're still learning your processes. There are companies who do come to us and they don't have any idea what they're doing when it comes to supporting their customers. We had one client come, they had an influx in business and they were selling these cases that you can just stick on anywhere, like phone cases, and they were still handling their support through Gmail. But they didn't even have any kind of process in handling that. They were just leaving emails in the inbox after they responded to them. At the least they could do is archive the emails that no longer needed a response. So we had to come in and completely reshape them and move them to a help desk that would work for them. But it is within your best interest to start building that value, that knowledge equity within your own team, because you're going to be the one that knows how to solve most of the problems that your customers are submitting inquiries with. And you're going to be the one that's most likely motivated to start creating creating FAQs. I've seen a lot of people who underutilize FAQs in their business. And anytime when I was doing my customer support, even if I had an issue escalate to me, it was often myself who had to go and think, let me create an FAQ for this. And then with modern systems like Zendesk, et cetera, that you can have it pop up because it'll automatically read the text and attempt to provide a recommendation to the customer on how they can actually resolve that. Another area that's underutilized is making sure you have enough FAQ articles and your question is available on Google. A lot of people will type in, say like the other day I had Blue Apron, and so I typed in Blue Apron cancel. And then they had an FAQ page that popped up, and that allowed me to not have to call them and ask them, okay, how can I go through this process? So I'm a big fan of outlining all your knowledge outright once you have that information, but you can only do that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and I think like that goes back to the whole customer experience thing, where by building such a comprehensive website with all the relevant information that a customer is going to need, you're providing a better experience for them. Because I think the majority of people would prefer to just serve themselves, get it done immediately, rather than to have to go through the hassle of calling or emailing someone, knowing that so many other companies probably underinvest in customer service and they don't get that quality experience by emailing or reaching out to someone on it.
And by far, of course, it's still tremendously important to have somebody who can answer the phone and do it properly. I would always have a call script available for the most common requests. And I'd always make sure that they would answer, like my previous company, thank you for calling Pacific Coast. My name is Cody. How can I help you? I would always make sure that they start out the same way. I would listen to some of their calls, and then I would say, I felt like you didn't have any energy, or one time I had a remote guy and he had a baby, and so that was a struggle to deal with. How do you handle a baby in the call? But it's obviously best not to have a baby. But it was pretty good trying to deal with all that and learning through that as a process. But you need to do that as a business owner, and that's an important part.
Yeah, you touched briefly on it. Let's go back to like the help desk softwares. Like, what do you see most of your clients using from a technology standpoint right now? And any recommendations you'd have?
Well, previously I just wanted to touch on the customer experience, that it also is related to the onboarding process of having a good onboarding process. And so, yes, it's having great people is important, but if you have an onboarding process that sends out an email to the client every few days, or you're optimizing the emails and you're adding language, like positive language, like I would add emoticons, like a happy face to say my order confirmation email. Those little tiny changes in those automated emails can go a big way to improving your customer experience, because a lot of people, especially if you have Shopify, you don't customize those standard emails. They just all look the same, and a little bit of time customizing that can really change people's perception of your brand, of like, oh wow, they focus on this little detail. And some customers, especially your important ones, they'll eventually notice that. But when it comes to the help desk, we see most clients are obviously using Zendesk. Freshdesk is closely behind. You have Desk.com by Salesforce. Out of all of them, though, I would say my favorite is Help Scout. It's relatively simple, and yet they have most of the features of the big players. And they also have a heavy focus on having a knowledge-based FAQ section, because I think, again, that's important. And the customer experience is not just every time you call or chat. Millennials are going to an era where they don't want to call, they don't want to chat. At most, they might send a text message, right? And so I'm a belief in trying to reduce the number of inquiries as possible while introducing a customer experience that is more automated, because at the end of the day, I'd have a better customer experience if I didn't have to call you. And that's my perspective of reducing those interactions while improving the more automated interactions when it comes to having an evergreen onboarding survey, or you're sending out email, like I sign up for your newsletter, that would come to me every day or so, giving me new information.
Yeah, and I think the FAQ, the knowledge base software is vital, but for us too, like as an e-commerce business, like having video on product pages so they can see how the product works and kind of get a more like real understanding of what the product looks like and how it's sized in somebody's hands or on somebody's body or the person, depending on what the item is, and really informs them so they just feel more comfortable. Because the reality is most customers are probably not even going to reach out. They're either going to find the information or they're not, and they're going to leave. You're very lucky if someone takes the time to reach out to you, because the chances are they're probably going to go search for someone else, and they're going to find your competitor who has great photography or great
But of course, if that person does manage to call you and they have a great customer experience, and that person says, ask them about not just how was your day, but then maybe he reveals a little bit something about himself, that I just had a haircut, or something about himself that reveals that you're willing to be more personal with the client. And that's something people remember. It reminds me of a book about experiences. I was talking about experiences, forgot the name of the book, but there's a hotel in Los Angeles, and it's a very expensive hotel, around $400 a night, but it just looks like an average Motel 6. And if you went to a Hyatt or a Hilton, you'd have a pleasant experience. But in this particular hotel, they had this red phone next to the pool that you could pick it up anytime, and you can ask them to serve you popsicles. And they will come out on a silver tray and give you any selection of popsicles that you like. And it's just this red phone. It's an odd thing to have, and it's an expensive hotel that's relatively mediocre otherwise, but you are likely to remember that experience because it's different. So you're going to tell your friends, there was like this red phone and they gave me popsicles. And so it's those interesting, unique experiences that allow you to create more of that bond with that customer that you typically wouldn't get in a typical customer service interaction.
Okay. So on e-commerce, that's really easy to do, I guess, if you can get them on the phone. But the reality is we're not getting most of our customers on the phone. What are some other ways that companies may be doing that red phone strategy?
For me, at least in my business, it was customizing the emails. I would have a different color banner. I would have a different icon. I would also have I would write the text. I would rewrite all the emails in more of a funny tone. It's funny but professional, trying to establish a personality for the brand. And I think that is incredibly important in the age of when all we're doing is we're ordering online, we're reading text on a website, we're placing an order, we're getting those emails. I mean, a lot of people will just archive those emails, but some of them you need to open them. And if it's something that's funny that made you sort of smirk even, that's something that you might remember. And then you can trigger, this brand, this personality, this language, it's not standard. And I think that is, you can go a long ways. Over a long period of time, you're going to gain some followers just based on that small thing, that text that they read in an email, and it just made them laugh.
Yeah. And I think, maybe some listeners are like, well, what if I say something that offends somebody? Or what if I say something that they don't like? And I mean, I'm just going to answer my own question, which is probably not really cool, but you need to have your niche, right? You need to have that loyal customer base who really identifies with your brand voice and your brand mission. Because the reality is you can't be everything to everyone.
Yeah. And often if you're afraid to try something different because you're afraid you're going to have haters, then you're not going to be in a position to be successful. All the most successful people deal with hate mail. It's a part of being successful, a part of having a business. You can't cater to everybody, so you need to find your niche audience. There's an essay, I think it's by Paul Graham, that said all you really need to have is 1,000 true fans. Have those true fans, and they will follow you and do whatever you go, whatever you sell, they will buy it, and that's all that matters. That's the minimum amount that you can need to simply survive on your own. So don't worry about those others. It's not always about getting as big as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and both you and I are big fans of bootstrapping, which really helps bring that focus with that 1,000 fans. And we kind of had that same mentality. It's like, certainly there's 1,000 bearded guys out there who want premium products, and that will be enough to put food on the table for my family and a roof over our head. What one thing that we also like to do, kind of like with that unique experience, is in the actual fulfillment process. We drop in what we call essentially a thank you kit. And it's a small envelope with a little card in there that has information about new products, or just a thank you, and email us if you ever need help. But it also contains essentially a field notes, but it's all in our own brand. So it has our core values in there, it has our mission in there, and it's a little freebie that's, probably $5 of value. if you were to buy it yourself for that one pack, that I think can really help set yourself apart from, the Amazon. Because what do you get like when you order from Amazon? What is that experience like?
Well, right now it's just like getting a package from Christmas, right? I don't always know what I've ordered, but I always look forward to opening it. And I think it's important to so one other alternative is to overpromise and it might have been the opposite, under promise and over deliver, where say I know that in many cases, even with Amazon, is that if you had something delayed or whatnot, they'll send something the next day and you won't pay anything as a replacement. And if you say it's going to take 5 days, but it gets there in 3 days, that can be a huge boost to, oh, wow, it got here sooner than I expected. And of course, having these personalized cards, every time I've seen them in a package, it makes me feel more connected with whatever I was ordering. And I have a cat at home, and so I was, for a while, I was on this Meow Box subscription. They're based in Vancouver, and then every time I open it, they always will tape the cat stuff in this little feather, so I can always take the feather off the sticker and I give it to my cat, and he likes to play with it. But then they always also have a card, and they will write his name, which he's our mascot for my company, Support Ninja, so his name is Ninja, and so they'll always write Ninja, and it's handwritten, and that's something that I remember, that they took the time to handwrite his name on the card.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I've thought about that as an entrepreneur, and I don't know how to scale that. Like, how do you, like, if you're doing 10,000 orders a day or 1,000 orders a day, like, how do you have that many people writing those notes?
Well, I think you need to look at your order fulfillment process and also see, it is possible to automate that. I know that there actually are, believe it or not, there's, I won't name names, but there are services like that will send mail, and it looks handwritten, where you type it up and then you pay them a few dollars and then they'll send it to your client, and it looks like it's handwritten. But in some cases, they do actually have machines that make it look handwritten, but it's actually a computer that does it. That's a little bit deception, but when it comes back to your order fulfillment process, you should know how long does it take in each stage of that process. And then even trying it yourself as an entrepreneur, go into your order fulfillment section someday and then actually time out how long does it take, and then see how long would it take to do that. Or maybe you have a dedicated person who's maybe doing customer support at the same time. Maybe in between the tickets, they're writing names on the postcards and then they're handing it to the order fulfillment guys. There's a whole slew of ways that you can customize it, but knowing all the aspects of your order fulfillment process and how long it takes for each part can help you find out where can you bridge that gap.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned those machine writing devices, and I actually had a salesman from one of those companies contact me recently, and he sent me those notes. I think if you don't want to be deceptive, you don't call it handwritten, you call it written with pen and paper, because they are using an actual pen that's like tied into like a plotter, and then it just goes over the paper. So that's how you can maybe communicate it a little more ethically. But yeah, I think those are really the things that are going to help separate. And in those early days, I mean, I don't know who said that, but do things that don't scale, right? Like, build that relationship with those early customers. They're taking a chance on you. They probably recognize and realize you're a small company. And then when they get an unbelievable experience, then they tell your friends, and your marketing costs go down dramatically the moment other people start talking about your brand.
And I'm conflicted, because on one hand, I'm a big believer in fake it till you make it. Because when you're first starting out, you really sort of have to fake a lot of your stuff, whether it's how big you are. I know when I was establishing my hosting companies, I would have an alias that I would go under. I would answer the name so that if they asked to speak to the manager, there would be a manager that they could refer it to. And I know that even when I didn't fake it, and I would admit, oh yeah, I'm a one-person company, that it would turn off some people. But on the same end, if they know that you're small, then I know especially that the first client of Support Ninja, Cleanify, they knew that we were small, but they decided to take a chance on us versus a competitor that was 10 times bigger than us, because they knew that we would give them more attention. We would try our best to hold on to them and do what we needed, because at the other one, they would just feel like a number. So there are advantages to being small and letting your customers know that. I think it goes back to who are your clientele? Are they business people that are looking, why are they buying your product? Is it because of price? Is it because of customer support? Is it because of just brand loyalty? I know, like, I like to buy Oakley sunglasses, but they're all made by the same manufacturer, but I have a fascination with Oakley. I like Oakley, and I don't know where why I like it so much, but we all have those associations with those various brands that we can build up over time.
So fake it till you make it. I think as an e-commerce brand, like, our number, if you're not on Amazon, like, that's your gold standard for what you're competing with. And it's like, what can Amazon do well and what can they do bad? And believe it or not, Amazon sucks at a lot of things. And when I get a box or my wife orders something from Amazon, it's like this blown up padded plastic thing that doesn't really cushion the product in the box. And then you open up the box, it looks hideous. Like, there's no unboxing experience. And then when I contact them, like, I know they'll take care of me, but I know it's not, they don't really care, right? They're just going through their tickets. And I feel like if you're starting out as a young business, that you have that special ability to go above and beyond and deliver what Amazon can't, and kind of like pride yourself on that. I think you talk about fake it till you make it. I think what's important there is really the competence, right? You can be competent and small, and you can be competent and big. But if you're incompetent and small, then that's where you're going to kind of lose it.
Right. And it's about, at the end of the day, it comes back to how can you differentiate yourself from those big competitors. Do an analysis of what they do good, and then look at what can you do. You could do what's called a SWOT analysis of looking at the various benefits of doing that. Another idea I had I've only had it very infrequently, but there's been times I order something from a smaller product and then I would get a piece of candy or something inside of it. And I remember some distant study that when you consume that sugar, you're getting a dopamine rush. And so if somebody opens up your box and then they see your card and a little piece of candy and then they have that, subconsciously you may very well be building up more of a presence with your customers because they associate that sweet experience with your company.
Along those lines, I also saw a survey that said, like, restaurants that offered like a standard mint versus like a premium high-end.
The tips get more.
Yeah, the tips actually don't make a difference if it's like a really good candy versus a standard candy, but it makes a big difference if there's a candy versus no candy at all. So it doesn't really matter the details of what you're doing. You just kind of got to do it. I wanted to go back to your phrase, like, under promise and over deliver. One of the phrases I like to say here in the office is over promise and then over deliver on that promise. And I think as an entrepreneur, like, it's almost your duty to go above and beyond what everyone else in the marketplace is doing and to really set that benchmark higher than anyone else can deliver on, because that's essentially what's going to keep you in business and keep you growing.
And Amazon's philosophy has always put the customer first. That's always been Jeff Bezos from number one. And what you can take out of that is I can recall many experiences where I would hire somebody to do customer service or billing, and I would have strict policies like refund policies, cancellation policies, and if the customer was even one day outside that refund guarantee, my agent would say, "No, I'm sorry, you're outside that policy," right? And yes, we have policies that exist for a reason, but it took me a very long time to understand that I had to train my agents to put the customer first. But then also you want to know how to deal with customers that are not so great, because I'm not always a believer in the customer's always right. Sometimes they are, but in many cases it could be a belligerent, emotional person, and you have to still be able to treat them with respect. But back to the point, it was
I don't know, but I agree with you about customers not always being right. I think if you can filter out the criticism from like the language and just focus on that, it can be good. But I, as an entrepreneur, I always support my employees first. I know the customer is always first, but I believe that by empowering my own team, that actually puts the customers first, where they feel like they're supported and they're not going to be penalized really for making a mistake or trying something new and failing.
Where I was going is you have your terms of service, you have your policies, but you have to train your employees to recognize that it's not always it's a fluid idea of that what they can stick to, that they're allowed to refund customers outside that guarantee, because at the end of the day it's about improving the customer experience, not holding on to that $1 because the customer filed a request too late or he didn't do something right that wasn't against your policy. And so that was a biggest learning point for me, is trying to train my agents that you should put the customer first, be proactive, because I've had a lot of issues like that where they will recognize a problem but not proactively contact the customer or try and resolve it. They actually wait for the customer to say that it's a problem and then they resolve it. So it does come back to how you're managing your customer service team. How do you review the weekly issues? Do you have a process in place to tag potential problem points that you can then have a discussion later on that week? A lot of customer agencies, they also follow the Kaizen mentality about how do you run your organization, how do you train your employees, how do you have them provide input to grow the process and make it a better customer service without the entrepreneur, founder, CEO always having to be there to monitor things.
Give a little 30, you mentioned this twice already, the Kaizen theory. Give a 30-second pitch on what that is for people not familiar.
It started back when Toyota was having a lot of production issues, and what they would end up doing is because they would always wait till the end of the line in order to fix any tiny problems with the car, but it would end up not improving the process, and employees wouldn't always tell them whether they had an issue or not, and it was causing delays, it was causing overages and operational overhead issues. And so when Toyota came in, or they had some new executives from Japan, and what they did is they instituted a process where every person in that line could have a button that they could press and would stop the whole line. And so at first they were hesitant to do that, but then they over time they started to train them on pressing that button, and even though that they were losing a lot of money per minute, they were able to resolve that problem right then and there. And that actually allowed Toyota to understand where our the pain points, where are they specifically, and then they can work on actually resolving that. And it's also about opening up communication with your employees, having what a lot of companies will have Kaizen meetings every day where they go over a few key points in just 5 or 10 minutes. But the primary principle of Kaizen is that you're trying to have your employees provide input on improving the process, because a lot of time you hire employees, they do what they're trained, but they don't always think about how can I improve my job, how can I make the company more efficient. A lot of people are just by default, we're all sort of selfish, and in some ways I've met a lot of employees who they build up knowledge equity within their job position as their company grows. And I've been blackmailed by, say, an employee who knows I can't fire him, but he doesn't want to quit. Because he knows too much about the business, and I would end up being in a position where I was in this catch-22 because I didn't want my business to fail because he knew too much information. Kaizen tries to retrain your employees to not have that mentality that you're all working for the one and everybody benefits, including yourself. And so you shouldn't hold on to this idea that you're gonna hold on to the knowledge that you acquire so that you can blackmail or use it to prevent yourself from being fired. And that can be difficult. A lot of companies, if they move to this philosophy, they'll end up having to fire employees who aren't able to adapt to that new philosophy. But there is a book that I'll give you after the podcast so you can link to the description notes. There's a fantastic, absolutely amazing book on Kaizen philosophy and how to incorporate it into your business if you haven't already.
Sweet. Among being a successful business owner who's built and sold businesses, amazing at customer service and knowing customer support in and out, you also are a podcast host. Do you want to give a quick little plug to your podcast?
Oh, happy to. I run the Mind Hack podcast at just mindhack.com. What I attempt to do is look at the person behind the success, whether it's successful entrepreneurs, creatives, artists, and looking at what were their life experiences, what are their habits, what are their mindset, what is their routine that allowed them to become the person that they are today in order to create that successful business. So it's sort of looking at the foundation behind their underlying success, because that's essentially, if you can't make your bed every day, then there's no chance in hell that you're going to be able to run a Fortune 500 company. So it's looking at that foundational core of what makes a successful person so that you can go on to do big, great, ambitious things.
Sweet. Where else should people find you or reach out to you if they want more?
I have a Monday digest where I send out an interesting tidbit that I learned over the week, and also fun links, whether it's science, productivity related. That's just at codymclain.com, CODYMCLAIN.
And then, of course, Support Ninjas.
And my other company is supportninja.com. If you guys need customer support, it's just supportninja.com. And we'd love to talk to you.
Sweet. Well, I enjoyed picking your brain for the past 30 minutes, learning more about customer support and service. As always, thanks for coming on. I hope our listeners learned a few things as well. This has been another e-commerce conversation on building an e-commerce business. Thanks for everything. Cheers, and keep on growing.